Good morning, everyone. Yes, very good morning. Shall we start the session? Today's topic is the new module, that is object-oriented programming model revision. In the last class, we have finished with the module that is web application and development. Today, I'm going to start with the C++, that is object-oriented programming approach. So first part is the software crisis that makes the development in the software technology that continues to be very much dynamic. And new tools and the techniques are also announced over here that makes the duplication, that makes a part of this as a, we can say, the feature that is not available, that is not the brainstorm, that is not used for the software design. So following issues has been addressed to face this circle. What are the various issues? So first, the software system has been not been the competitive in the nature, that is not acceptable in the sense that is not a highly competitive nature of the industry. And these rapid organization advances also appears to have created a situation of the crisis within the industry. And the following issues needs to be addressed to face this crisis: how to represent the real life scenarios, entities, or problem in the system design, how to design the system with the open interfaces, how to ensure reusability and the accessibility of the modules, how to develop the module that are tolerant to any changes in the failures, how to improve the software productivity and decrease the software cost, and how to improve the quality of software. So these are the various questions that we have to give, we have to answer. How to manage the time schedules, how to industrialize the software development process. These are the few, we can say, the question that must be answered, that must be we can say that must be used to ensure the readability and the reusability of the modules. So these are the paid for but not received, delivered but not used, that is reworked, used after change, used as delivered. These studies reveal that the software products should be evaluated carefully for their quality before they are delivered and implemented, and there are software quality issues that must be considered for the critical evaluation, that are correctness, maintainability, reusability, openness, and the interoperability. Now the next part is what are the various features that must be included, that must be used, what are the various issues that must be considered for the critical evaluation. That are the correctness, that are the maintainability, that are the profitability, reusability, openness, and the interoperability, then portability, security, integrity, user friendliness. And the selection and the use of the proper software tools would help resolving some of these issues. One is the hardware charges, documentations, other efficiency involvement or improvement, changes in the user requirement, routine debugging, emergency fixes, and next one is changes in the data format. So whatsoever the data, whatsoever the profitability, whatsoever the portability that must be used, that must be one of the issues of this software reuse. And next is the software evaluation. So Ernest Tello, a well-known writer in the field of AI, compared the evaluation of the software technology to the growth of the tree. Like the tree has a growth, in the same way the software has also a growth. Like a tree, the software evaluation has fed the distinct phases of the layers of the growth, and these layers were built up one by one over the last few decades. That must be used as an improvement over the previous one. And in case if the life of these layers will be reused, and in this software system, each of these layers continues to be functional, where in the case of the trees, only the uppermost layer is functional. As complexity increases, the architecture dominates the basic material. And to build today's complex software, it is not just enough to put together with the consequence of the programming statement, but also used with the set of the procedures and the modules We need to incorporate sound construction technique and the program structures that are easy to comprehend, they are easy to guess, they are easy to implement and modify. And since the invention of the program is going on, that is carried on, so many of the programming technology, many of the programming approaches have been tried out. This includes techniques such as the modular programming, top-down programming, bottom-up, and the structured programming. And this evaluation has been carried out in one of the concerns to increase the complexity of the program that are reliable and maintainable. These techniques have become popular among such programmers, among the programmers over the last 2 decades. One is the machine language, assembly language, procedure language, and the object-oriented language. And with the advent of the languages such as the C, structured programming became very popular, and the main techniques have been captured in the 1980s. That was a powerful tool that enables separately with the data that must be issued with the approach to show the desired results in terms of the bug-free, easy to maintain, and the reusable codes. Yeah, these codes are also reused again and again to concept for the new concepts. And it is a new way of organizing and developing the programs and nothing to do with any particular language. So any language, all the languages that must be able to implement the OOP concept easily. So when we use the previous languages such as the COBOL, Pascal, Fortran, that are commonly known as the procedure-oriented language, that is the POP. And in case of the POP, the problem is viewed as a sequence of the things to be done, such as the reading, calculating, and the printing. And number of functions are written to accomplish this task. But the primary focus is on functions. So there is a typical programming structure that will be carried out for the procedure programming. That have been used to specify the task that is to be completed for solving the problem. And the procedure programming oriented programming basically consists of writing a list of instructions or the actions for the computer to flow, organizing these instructions to the groups known as the functions. And we normally use a flowchart to organize these functions and represent a flow of control from one action to another. There is the one program that is divided into the various functions. That is a typical structure of the procedure-oriented programming. While we concentrate on the development of the functions, very little attention has been given to the data that are being used by the various functions. Now, what happens to the data? How they are affected by the function that works with them? In a multi-function program, many important data are placed as global because they are accessed by each and every function. So whatsoever the function they have used up, whatsoever the data they have used up, that must be used with the local variable or the local data. And these global data are also much more vulnerable to the change in the action. And in case of the revised schedule as an external data structure, we need to revise all the functions that access the data. This provides an opportunity for the bugs to creep in. Another serious drawback with the procedure programming is that it does not model the real problems very well. This is because functions are the action-oriented and they do not really correspond to the elements of the problem. There is a global data, function 1, function 2, and the function 3. And these characteristics exhibit by the procedure-oriented programming. First is emphasis on doing the things. What is algorithm? The large programs are divided into the smaller programs known as the functions. Then most of the functions share the global data. And data move openly from one system to another, one function to another. In the same way, function transform data from one form to another. That employs a top-down approach in the popular design or program design. And this is one of the major motivating factor in the invention of the object-oriented approach is to remove some of the flaws encountered in the procedure programming that treats it as a critical elements in the program development and does not allow it to free around the system. That ties the data more closely to the function that operates on it and also protects it from the accidental modifications from the outside functions. And OOP also decomposition of a problem into number of entities known as the object. Why? Because main object is to carry out the number of data that builds up the data and the functions around these objects. And this organization of the data and the functions are carried out that can be expressed only by the functions associated with that object. However, the functions of one object can access the functions of other objects. And some of the features of the object-oriented are emphasis on the data rather than the procedure. Programs are divided into what are known as the objects, and the data are structured, designed, they are characterized by their objects. Then functions that operates on the data of an object are tied together in the data structure that is hidden and cannot be accessed by the external functions and that may communicate with each other through the functions. So new data and the members can easily be added up whenever it is necessary. That follows the bottom-up approach in the program design. This is the object A, object B, then there is the data and the functions, data and the function, then there is a communication, object C, functions and the data. This program defines, or this definition defines object-oriented programming as an approach that provides a way of modularizing the programs by creating the partition memory, by creating the chunks of memory for both the data and the function that can be used as a template for creating copies of such module on demand. So whenever we create the modules on demand that must be popularized, that must be used as a template for creating the copies of such module on demand. Therefore, when an object is considered to be a partitioned area of the computer memory that stores the data and the set of operations that can access that. And since the memory partitions are the independent, so objects can be used in a variety of different programs without modification. So without modification, they are never be told, they are never be used as a criteria, as an concept that will be used as a basic template of the programming. Now next is what are the various basic concepts of the object-oriented programming, how it is used, what are the various concepts that is extensively used in the object-oriented programming. These include the objects, classes, data abstraction and the encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, and the message passing. So these are the few concepts that must be used, that must be able to understand the concept, that must be able to judge what are the various features of the object-oriented programming. How these features will be useful in this object-oriented programming, what are the various objects, what are the various data encapsulation, abstraction that must be done, that must be used with the inheritance, with the record that must be available. Yeah, we will discuss this in the next class, that is in the tomorrow's class. What are the various objects, how it is used, why it is not used, what are the various drawbacks that must be considered, that must be used in the object-oriented programming. Yeah, object is also communicate with the classes, data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, everything that is related with each other. So when we talk about the objects, that is any real life entity, any real time entity that must be satisfied, that must be used. Then classes. So when I combine multiple objects together, that becomes class. For example, class A that combine the data members and the member functions both, that is known as classes. So one is the object, that is a real time entity, or the classes. Then data abstraction and the encapsulation. What do you mean by the data abstraction? That means binding of the data, abstract the data. Encapsulation means more than one form, that is encapsulate the data from one part to another. Then inheritance. Inheritance means taking the features of another's. Polymorphism, that means more than one form. Same function will be used within another form. then dynamic binding and the message passing. These are the various objects, these are the various concepts in the object-oriented programming that must be used, that must be available within the data, that must be used within the data. How it is used, when it is used, and for whom it is used. That must be considered, that must be used over here. So we will discuss this in the next class, that is the tomorrow's class. What are the various concepts or basic concepts of the OOPs? Okay. No, that these are the various concepts that must be available, that must be used within the database. These are used within the object-oriented programming. Everything that is used. There is no way that it is used, it cannot be used. No, everything is used in the object-oriented programming. But the main difference is that some of the concept is used extensively in the object-oriented, some of the E are used within the database. That must have some criteria for the data abstraction, for the data encapsulation. These must be carried out within the database. These are the objects, classes, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, binding, dynamic binding, and the message passing. Yeah, these are the various objects, these are the various, we can say, the concepts of the OOPs. Object-oriented programming, that is a programming approach in which we are using how to gather the information within the database. How this approach can be done as an object-oriented programming, how we are going to discuss with this is. Now, anyone, any doubts in the today's class, anything that you want to ask regarding the assignments, regarding anything that you want to ask? No. Anything that is related to this topic, subject, assignment, anything that you want to ask. But these concepts are going on from the few concepts. So if you want any clarification, then please clarify it right now, because if you clarify beyond after that, so that will be very difficult, because these each and every concepts